Disclaimer: this guide is mainly targeted at Dire, but the boss mechanics are the same for Fearless, and you can adjust team requirements accordingly. The labeled cost requirement is assuming you have very well built characters and know the optimal combos. If you're struggling, add 1 or 2 more cost to make the clear much easier. This Stygian has a scary amount of total HP, with the newest boss having 28 million HP at Dire, but the actual HP is much lower due to its mechanics, and unlike the 6.5 Stygian, the difficulty for the 3 bosses this Stygian is much closer. Starting with the Watcher Fallen Vigil, it has 28.5 million HP at Dire, but the actual HP is somewhere around 16 million because the boss does a lot of self-damage. His mechanics is quite complex, so I will start with the basics, then go into the detail, and explain using this timeline. The exact timing might not be accurate because there are 2 versions floating around, and it's unclear which one it is going to be on release. Around 5 seconds into the stage, it will start recording the element you hit him with. It can only record one of the effect elements, so Pyro, Hydro, Electro, Cryo. Once it records 5 hits from an element, the recording will stop. You have 5 seconds to record the element. After another 10 seconds, it will start doing the same recording a second time. But for the second recording, if you are trying to record the same element as the first time, it will take 15 hits instead of 5. In this clip here, the first recording is Hydro, and as you can see, the second recording takes a lot more hits to record. But if you use a different element from the first recorded element, it will only take 5 hits. For the second recording, you have 8 seconds to record an element. 5 more seconds after it finishes recording the second time, it will summon 2 stars, which are infused with the 2 recorded elements, and fly into the sky. The stars are essentially slimes because they are immune to the element they are infused with. Depending on if the 2 elements you recorded are the same or different, the stars will have different amount of HP. If the stars are different elements, each one has 1.9 million HP, and if the 2 stars are the same element, each one has 4.8 million HP. You have up to 18 seconds to destroy the star before the boss will one-shot you. After destroying the first star, the boss will lose 8% of its total HP, and the second star makes it lose 16% of its total HP, so killing both stars makes him lose 24% of his total HP. The boss will then be vulnerable for around 25 to 30 seconds. That's the basic rundown. Now let's dive into the details. The 5 hit requirement for the recording is 5 actual hits, not 5 application, so it's very easy to do with Catalyst user and characters with infused normal attacks. When you destroy the stars, the self-damage that the boss takes has elements, meaning those damage can have reactions. For example, in this clip, there is a Hydro and Pyro star. Destroying the Hydro star first makes the boss take an instance of Hydro self-damage. Then, when the Pyro star is destroyed, the Pyro self-damage that the boss takes is vaporized. Another small trick is that when the boss flies into the sky, he can still be hit by abilities with high vertical hitbox, such as Traska or Neuvillette looking up. The hardest part about doing this boss is adapting your rotation around its recording mechanics while squeezing out as much damage in the meantime as possible. Generally, teams that can record 2 different elements have a much easier time, but there are still teams which can clear with single element stars if you have enough DPS, mainly Skirk. Here are the team recommendations. Once again, I've limited the recommendations to non-C6 5 stars. If certain DPS is not listed here, it's because the boss is likely not possible without having them C6. Also, due to the overlapping nature of Bennett and Nicole, unless specified, they are interchangeable, so you can bring Nicole instead of Bennett with a slight DPS loss. The boss favors teams with flexibility, such as Malvika, with some videos of Miliastra simulation clearing using Mona Sucrose Iansa with C0R1 Malvika, but considering the real boss is likely harder, the recommendation here is C2R0 Malvika, and you can play around with different teammates based on your account. The 3 lunar teams can also clear by bringing an extra unit for recording. Neuvillette can also clear this boss as his team is quite flexible, with generally the best option being Pyro MC plus Sitlali. However, the traditional Varka double Pyro team does not work for this as the Pyro application is not fast enough for the elemental recording phase. Now onto the second new boss, Glacial Wolf. Unlike the Watcher, this boss's mechanic is quite simple and you've already seen it in the Spiral Abyss before. It puts up a shield at the start of the battle that can only be broken by Pyro or Electro Swirl. After breaking the shield, it will refund a small portion of the damage dealt during the shield phase and become vulnerable for around 55 seconds. There was a version of the boss with 50 Electro Res, but that seemed to be removed, so now Electro DPS can also do this boss just fine. The boss is also fully immune during the shield phase, meaning that Sac and Fab weapon will not be able to proc. Here are the team recommendations. The best teams for this is either Pyro DPS carries or Varka. Movica and Alakino can both clear this boss. The easiest option is Mono Pyro, but you can also experiment with Vaporize or Melt. Electro DPS like Flins and Barisa can also clear, but the shield break will be slower as the shield is a cryo shield, so Pyro swirls are much faster than Electro swirls. C2 Mulani can also do this boss pretty easily, but you have to learn the proper rotation for Hexfire Mulani. C2 Chaska can clear as well, but will require more Constellation on your support. Just a tip, if you're using Chaska, you need to spam normal attack like this to break the shield. Finally, the last boss is a familiar face, Hydro Tulpa. It was in the first ever Stygian, and its mechanics are quite simple. There is a Miliastra simulation on global servers, so you can try that out. It is perma self-infused with Hydro, and summons 2 Hydro Slimes periodically. You need to kill both within roughly 20 seconds, or the boss will heal and gain high resistance. To kill them, either break their Hydro shield using Dendro or Cryo, or do enough damage to kill them. After 45 seconds, it will put up a shield that needs to be broken. When the shield goes up, he will also give your team max energy and cooldown resets. This allows for some shenanigans, such as a double skirt Q, like the clip here. There was also a tech used where you don't have to kill both slimes at once. Essentially, you want to kill one of the slime the moment the boss tries to absorb. Since the boss is infused with Hydro, it makes certain buffs harder or impossible to trigger. If you want to use VV or Pyro Swirl, you have to use the weapon infusion tech or do a Goba Swirl. The 4-piece scroll effect also doesn't trigger on characters like Shinonen or Sitlali, so you need to change them to something like Instructor or Tenacity. However, Overload can still trigger on the boss, making it a very good option for any Pyro or Electro DPS. A special mention goes to Overload Flins, as he no longer needs a off-field Hydro unit and isn't reliant on Chevreuse C6, as Lunar Charge does not use damage percent. A word of caution if you are doing the Miliastra simulation, as it does not show how aggressive the boss's attack is. Especially if you are using Bennett, it is very easy to get one-shot. Also, the distance between the 2 Hydro Slimes are somewhat random in actual battle, so while the videos show Flins hitting both Hydro Slimes with 1 Q, it may not be possible in combat. Here are the team recommendations. The 3 Lunar teams no longer need a Hydro unit. I already mentioned Overload Flins, but the normal Flins team also work, and depending on whether you can brute force kill the slimes, you may have to bring a Cryo unit. For Nefer, there's already simulated clears using C0R0 Nefer Llama with Sucrose Fischl clearing, but that will be harder against the actual boss because you might die. So you can switch Fischl to many other options like Diona, Zhongli, and so on if you have enough damage. For Z-Bai, you can bring out the 4 Geo team if you can brute force kill the slimes, or bring a Cryo unit. As for non-Lunar teams, Pyro DPS have a pretty easy time. The easiest way is to bring Sitlali to break the slime's shield. Overload also works if you can brute force kill the slimes. The best Pyro DPS here are Movica and Alakino, but if you have C2 Sitlali and other Constellation on your supports, you can also make other Pyro DPS work, such as C1 Hu Tao or something like C2 Chaska. The improvement in Skirk's combo should also allow C0R1 Skirk with C0 teammate. Other Natlan DPS will also work, such as C2R1 Virisa and Kinich. Varka can also clear, but as he has to brute force the slimes, you probably need C2R1 on Varka and maybe some more on your supports. That's it for the Stygian. This Stygian heavily favors Pyro DPS with all 3 bosses, with Movica once again likely being able to clear all 3 with C0R1. The mechanics of the bosses also mean you may have to play around and experiment with weirder teammates. These are some example teams options of all the 3 bosses with no overlapping teammates. Let me know if I missed anything, and feel free to discuss or ask for advice in the comments, and good luck with your clears.